Welcome everyone, I'm Tom Murphy and this is Trinidad Now on Trinidad Times Television. With me today is City Council candidate Rusty Goodall. Rusty, thank you.
Hey, thank you, Tom. I appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me.
Absolutely. So just like with the other candidates, we're going to do three segments.
Right.
We're going to do some general questions, then we're going to talk about economic development, and then we're going to talk about management, like city and your roles in government and whatnot, and then you'll have an opportunity to speak to the cameras. As I've told the other candidates, one of the things is it may seem like I'm repeating some questions, but I put different things in different categories. So just bear with me.
All right.
And if you feel like you're repeating stuff, that's just part of the process.
Not a problem.
Because there's no time constraints. Anyway, Rusty, as well known as you are, as I was telling Sonny the other day, lifelong resident, even though a lot of people know you, a lot of people have moved to Trinidad and they don't. So the first question is about your personal background. Mm-hmm. Where were you born? Where have you lived? Where were you educated? Tell me about your spouse, the name, the number of children. And in your case, it just dawned on me, and actually with the other candidates, there's grandchildren to talk about. Tell me and the rest of the people about all that.
All right. So born in Roswell, New Mexico. When some people hear that right away, they say, well, that explains a lot. So born in Roswell, was there up until around 74, somewhere in that area, and then with my parents moving and stuff, wound up in San Juan, New Mexico, a little town which would be west of Amarillo. That's where I graduated high school, where I joined the military. Joined the United States Navy there in 1978. Served 4 years in the military. I got out of the Navy in 1982. When I got out, I moved to Lovington, New Mexico, and started my life back as a civilian, all growed up and whatnot. So all the education I have is just through high school and the schooling that the military sent me to.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what about spouse, people and children, stuff like that?
So between me and Michelle, we've been married for 12 years. We have 4 kids. 2 boys, 2 girls. We have 14 grandchildren, 2 that are sophomores in college. I think our youngest is 6.
Right.
So quite a big spread there.
Right.
So we have 2 kids in Denver, 1 in Farmington, and 1 boy that still lives here in Trinidad, works for Duran Oil.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how long have you been in Trinidad?
So I moved to Trinidad right around 1990. So
and what for you? Where were you working? I know I remember part of this story.
So I worked for a company that had gas stations, and my job for them was to go to the areas. I would walk in, fire all the employees, build the business back up, train new people in, and move on to the next. And the mistake they made was sending me to Colorado. I'd always wanted to be here. Nice small town, similar to what I grew up in that I liked. And so I called them up and said, I'm not leaving. And so I told them, fire me or leave me here in Colorado. And that's what brought me to Trinidad, was Gasamat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So from there, of course, I did my job a little too well. And about 4 years into that, the business was a little too good. And they sold, and I got the phone call that said, we've sold, pack your stuff and get out.
Ouch.
That is rough. So that's what led me into the construction business, and I was a commercial contractor here in Trinidad clear up until 2010.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people know this, but not everybody. But your wife, she's quite the photographer extraordinaire, right?
You know, it's funny, in Trinidad, I've been here all these years, and so when I brung Michelle here, that's Rusty's wife. She was here for 2 years, and all of a sudden, after being here 20-something years, I became Michelle's husband. So she is a photographer. She is known around the world, National Geographic.
She has some in National Geographic?
She's had 3 different pictures in National Geographic and has been in galleries literally around the world.
Right.
Yeah.
And now she does graduation, wedding, all that type of stuff, right?
Correct. Back when the market fell out crashed, everything went
Right.
to heck. We used to travel and do shows everywhere, and that once that bottomed out, we explored another avenue. I bought a place, turned it into a studio, and so she started doing the portraits, the kids, the family pictures, graduations, all this kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that leads us up to, kind of where we're at now.
Right. And you guys are where? You guys are up at. Go ahead. I'm not going to say it for you.
Yeah, so we do manage. A friend of mine owns the Cawthon Motel and also Cedar Ridge. So we manage that property for them up on Santa Fe Trail. We have 2 mobile home parks, an RV park, a motel, a storage facility, and right next door is Michelle's photography studio. So we're
Right. You're right there.
there.
Well, I'm guessing, and actually we could share a little bit of a story without being specific, but you run across probably some interesting people in that business.
Boy, don't we ever. With as long as all the other businesses in Trinidad, when times were tough, is you get the undesirables and people passing through, and you allow people in that you normally wouldn't, just to try to keep the bills paid, and yeah,
Right.
we get some interesting ones that have come in there.
Yeah. Well, I knocked on your door for some people that showed up at my doorstep on a Sunday afternoon at dinner time, and you were gracious enough to accommodate them, and I still appreciate that.
Yeah.
I know that in the end it didn't work out well, but I know that you have a big heart, and Michelle does too, because these people, and it's something we can address later when we talk about the homeless. Actually, it's in
Correct.
this segment, but that's something you might have a pretty unique perspective on.
And I do.
Yeah.
I definitely do.
Okay, well, we'll get to that. But
Yes.
I just, Mandy and Toby came to mind, and I was like, all right, but you guys did a big favor there, and but things change. Second question. Tell me about your past public involvement. And let me read this. What you were elected to, appointed, voluntary, other positions held. Include, I actually had specific years, but that's not important. What were you involved with as far as each position in those?
All right, so I've been involved with the Trinidad Fire Department toy drive for over 20 years. I've been doing the Santa Claus deal. Everyone says my beard fits the role very well.
You do?
So with starting out, it's been over 20 years now with them. So we do fundraisers. I dress up in my suit, go door to door, and deliver to the needy kids. So over 20 years with that. I was an officer with State of Colorado, ABATE of Colorado, which is a motorcycle rights organization fighting for motorcycle rights, something a lot of people don't know in bills that we got passed. The reason our...
What does ABATE stand for?
Okay, ABATE is a brotherhood active towards education.
Oh, okay.
So, and that's what it stands for. A lot of people don't know that the reason our speed limits are 75 in the state of Colorado is because of ABATE. When they were pushing helmet laws through kids under certain ages, it's one of the deals we got through. That's an example.
Right.
Coffee with legislation. We used to serve them coffee, and it was amazing how many of our state politicians would ride in on their motorcycles to come hang out with us bikers while we served them coffee and donuts and
Right.
stuff. So from there, I've been with the Chamber of Commerce here locally. I served as vice chair. I was elected as, or I guess it's president with the chamber, vice president and president of the chamber. I've been involved in the Trinidad Blues Fest as vice chair and chair of that board of directors for the nonprofit, and putting on the Blues Fest for the past 7, 8 years. I served on the appeals and grievance board for the building department, for the contractors and for the building department, served both sides to make sure everybody was treated fairly. And from there I moved to the Planning and Zoning Commission, which I've served on for roughly the last 5 years as vice chair and now chair.
Okay.
So that's, I think that leads us through pretty much the last 20 plus years.
Well, your involvement with the planning and zoning, it's structured quite a bit, really like city council, isn't it, as far as procedures and everything?
It is. We are a quasi judicial board. We are governed by state law and held state standards that guide us in what we do. As far as prime example, the comprehensive plan we just rewrote for Trinidad. The one that was in place was over 8 years old. Your annexation, setting annexation lines where you're going to town, you hope the town to grow and stuff is all governed by the state. And so we've spent, geez, a little over 2 years now. We got the comprehensive plan passed. Right now we're doing subdivisions and then we start on codes. So it's a big undertaking. So it does everything we do at planning and zoning then goes to city council for approval.
Right.
So we're in an area now, we're really watching with myself and Mr. Leone, another candidate, both running,
Right.
what we're doing on planning and zoning, that we won't leave this board if we are elected to city council and then turn around and rule on something we wrote. So we're, we watch stuff like that very closely.
Right. If you get elected, you won't be able to be on planning and zoning, right?
No, right away, we'll have our last meeting up through December, and I won't, if we are elected, we will not vote. We will abstain from any voting on any matters. It'll be moving from P&Z to city council.
Okay. So you kind of have an inside track. Let me ask this. Is there a lot with subdivisions and things like that? Is there a lot happening right now?
There is a lot happening, and a lot of the subdivision stuff has already come through this year ahead of us rewriting, because it was a chapter in Trinidad there that was not very well defined. And so we're taking a lot of time, minor subdivisions, major subdivisions, which La Puerta is a prime example of a major subdivision that'll be coming in once that property gets going. And then we have minor subdivisions as I believe where the Toyota went through and some of the stuff in those areas and some like that.
Okay. I think I'd ask this to Sonny. You guys had worked on the master plan, but I've observed, the county and other places in the city where they spend all this money, they do a study, they do the plan, it goes on the shelf.
Right.
Is it going to get implemented?
Well, see, that's the good part and what I'm so proud of about ours that we wrote. The plan following ours, set on a shelf, was wrote and set on a shelf for 8 years, and I'm not sure the book was ever even opened. So we took time with the help of training that we received, made available to us through DOLA and other organizations, and also with a consultant that was hired, McCool Industries out of Denver, who come in specializing in stuff just like this, was able to walk us through the steps of writing this plan. And we were very proud of the fact we wrote a plan that was easily implemented and easily able to use. And then we presented to every commission in the city and left areas in the book that allowed them a guideline and give them goals to set and for implementing our plan.
So if you're on city council, will that help facilitate being able to encourage the master plan to be adopted so that it doesn't go back on a shelf?
Well, Benz, it has been adopted. So our new plan is in place and it is being adopted, and we are seeing it utilized. Parks with the trails and all the stuff is just one example that comes to mind right away where we're seeing it may affect. Whereas when you turn to like the library board, it's not something yet that is being used, but we've presented to them where when the time comes, and we set it up where they can read through it, and there's a chapter set for each commission. And what it allows them to do is read through that, see the stuff that's going on within Trinidad, what was applied to them or did apply to them. Then they could make the notes in there so that we could help through the department heads within the city to implement this stuff.
Okay.
So it's a neat process, and I'm very proud of the comprehensive plan that we put forth.
Okay. One of the things too you talked about is the money that you've raised with the Blues Fest, which, as we both know, Paul and I have a passion for. She's on your board.
Yes.
But where is some of that money that you've raised? What are some of the charities that it's going to?
Well, Noah's Ark is always at the forefront every year. Noah's Ark receives money. The Trinidad Fire Department Toy Drive, which is very near and dear to myself, being Santa Claus for years and seeing the faces of them kids that would otherwise not have a Christmas. The last couple of years, we moved to the Trinidad High School Music Department, Band Department, because our main goal always has been for the kids, how can we help the kids? This year, the robotics class at TSJC is receiving money. The Shop with a Cop program this year is receiving money. The police department scholarship program to get recruits to come in to be officers is getting money. So we always look at giving to organizations for education and to help the kids that are in schools or in need.
Cool.
Yeah.
It started just about 200 yards from here.
It did, just right down at Elm Street, I know.
Yeah, and we've never missed.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. I think in the things that you've talked about, I think I've revisited everything. Is there anything as far as past public involvement that we haven't covered?
The only other thing that we did, and as you can tell, kids are a big part of everything that I am included in, is when I was with ABAID of Colorado, every year for St. Patrick's Day, we held a benefit every year that raised money for kids with cancer and to help their families with money. I think it's important, if we don't invest in our youth and take care of our youth, what is our future really going to look like? And so that's important to me, and a lot of stuff I'm involved in helps the youth of this town.
Well, that's great. Next question, one of the bigger questions, what's your reason for running?
Well, it all started back in 2010 on my way to work one morning, 7:15. I caught a blind spot and I was T-boned on my motorcycle. So through my time of rehabilitation, I was disabled at that time. I was trying to think what I was going to do with my time. And I thought in giving my time to this community and local government and volunteering, starting out with planning and zoning would be where I'd start. And always my end goal was as city council, because I thought I have the time to give, which I think if you're going to be on a board, a commission, city council, whatever, it's important that it's not just a namesake for you, a feather in your cap. I was commissioner, I was city council, I was mayor, whatever. You should seek that position because you have time and something to offer it. And that's what has drawn me to it. I have the time, and I think I have something to offer city council. And I think I've proven that through my time with other commissions and other organizations that I've given my time to.
Interesting. Okay, the elephant in the room that
Yes.
in my opinion, a lot of media has not addressed. It's been here for a few years now, really, is what is your stance on marijuana?
Okay. So I am pro-marijuana, and not for the reason a lot of people think. It's not because I smoke marijuana. That was 20 years ago.
Right.
In my years in construction, working in the gas fields, taking the biz test and everything. I don't use marijuana as I used to. Through my injury I received a medical card from an elderly doctor up in Colorado Springs. Helped me get it and turned me on to edibles to manage my pain without having to use pharmaceuticals because there's such a problem with opioids. The VA had me on a 150 pill a month regimen for my pain management and whatnot.
150 pills?
150 pills a month. Through medical marijuana and edibles, I was able to cut that to 30. And so I am a proponent of marijuana for a couple of reasons. Number one, the health benefits and what I'm seeing it done, the CBDs, kids with seizures. I have grandsons that take CBDs. I have a daughter in the medical field that uses them for migraine headaches. That is part of the reason. Second reason is I've been in Trinidad long enough to watch this roller coaster ride of the end of the mines and in the Depression, the rise of the methane gas, the end of methane gas back into the Depression, and now we have I like to consider marijuana a stepping stool back, another chance in the right direction. Another reason I wish to be on city council is to try to make sure this is not another boom and bust. I want to see the money from marijuana that's being afforded to us right now invested into this community, invested into the future of Trinidad. That's why I am for marijuana.
Okay. All right. Question we talked about briefly earlier. This is a tough one. What should we do about panhandlers and the homeless?
Good question. And I've heard ideals. I ask people regularly. And I watch Colorado Springs, and I watch the ACLU backing those people on every ordinance, every law they try and pass to show what they can and can't do. So my ideal is, and I've heard it from other people here in town, and I want to run with the ideal I've heard, I want to see signage put in place where the panhandlers are, offering people another choice besides giving money to the panhandlers. Ask them not to. Provide an organization that's already existing to set it up, to take that money that's being given to these career panhandlers. And I have nothing against these. I have one living at my place right now that was living in a tent on the river. I took in. Pretty good judge of character, all right? And I gambled on this kid, and it was a good gamble. We put him in a room. He got a job. He works 5 to 6 days a week. He needed a hand up. I want to form an organization that will give the ones that need a hand up a hand, and the ones that are there as a career, send them down the road somewhere else, put them out of business in Trinidad through having these people donate to an organization who can help the people that need help. And I'd like to see the police department, and I know they're busy enough as it is, and they have plenty to do, and it would take a limited amount of time to set up. And when people stop to give those people money and they obstruct traffic, if you start ticketing those people for that, they will stop giving money to them. Once the money runs out, these people will migrate like they already do, and they go south in the winter and they come back north in the summer. And that's how I see as our best chance to put a stop to the panhandling problem. And it's not just here. I just went to Georgia and seen my mom in June. Every state across, you see it everywhere. Every time I go to Denver, I stop in Fountain at the gas station by Fort Carson, and they're lined up there. And they got an attitude like you are a piece of crap if you don't stop and give them money. They got their pets there, which drives me nuts. A load of kids out there with them playing on people's sympathy. And it's got to be put to a stop, and I'm hoping it can be done by giving the ones that need help another choice and people to stop giving them money.
That's interesting. And I know some of these people are squatting out and land outside of town and model and whatnot, and a couple of guys that tried to address it that had property out there end up getting arrested themselves.
Yes.
So it's a dilemma. I mean, it really, I got upset. I spoke at county commission meeting, and after they spoke right before I did, and it just made me upset.
It does.
You know, like you say, they're you know that some of them do need a hand up, but it's hard. How do you know?
Right.
Which ones are professional and which ones are really need help?
You never know. That's you have to rely on a gut instinct,
Yeah.
and some of them you can tell. I seen one here in town today up by the truck stop. The older gentleman, never seen him before. I could tell by his packs what he was carrying with him. That's someone I would have took a chance on normally.
Right.
The ones that sit down here at Maine drive me nuts as the husband and wife swap corners every 3 hours for a fresh face.
Yeah.
Or the motorhome that used to park up by the truck stop, and there were 5 of them that lived in it, and they run a schedule in and out of there, and they travel up and down this I-25 corridor, and it's terrible.
Well, my brother-in-law told me back when I was in college, which was a long time ago, he said, you know, this is way back in California years ago, he says, I felt so bad about this guy who was asking for money that I took him into a restaurant and I bought him a steak. And after they brought it, the guy looked at it and just got up and left.
Right.
Didn't want the money, or didn't want the food.
No.
Just wanted some money for the next fix.
I have one system I use that helps weed out some of my good and bad. With the property we own, there's always work that needs to be done. You need money, I tell them, come up the hill. I got work for you. I will feed you. I will put you in a room for a shower. And if they show up, I'll take a chance on them for a night.
Right.
Some of them winds up for longer. If they won't take the time to come put out an effort to work, I guarantee you they're not looking for a hand up. They're looking for a handout. And there's a big difference in the two.
Well, you really are on the front lines of this.
I try.
You have interesting perspective. I mean, you're right there with them.
Right.
So, last question, then we're going to take a break.
All right.
How much time will you devote to being on city council?
You know, more than my wife would like to see. Because she's like, well, I thought you were gone too much time already with planning and zoning. Now you're running for city council. And it was unjust that she tells me this because I do not take this lightly. I go into this with all that I have in him. That's the kind of person I am.
Right.
Most anyone that knows me, I'm not going to do this, and excuse my language, I'll use this term half-ass.
Right.
I'm in this all the way, and I will devote every minute of time it needs, plus all the time that I have to give to it. That didn't come out right. I will devote 110% of my time to city council if I'm elected.
Okay.
There you go.
Let me just interject this. And if people don't know you and they saw you, you're a big guy. But you know, one of the things I get, you play Santa Claus and everything else. So, you know, if people have a chance, they should come talk to you. But you can be a little intimidating.
I can.
But a guy who plays Santa Claus,
Yeah.
you know, with the kids,
Yeah.
and it's clear from what you said, you have a big heart.
I do.
You're a big guy, but you got a big heart.
And you know, up at the park, everyone tells in the park when they speak, they get late on rent or anything, they're like, talk to Rusty, not Michelle. I'm the big teddy bear. I'm the guy you'll see at the romantic comedy at the movie theater crying
Right.
with my napkin.
Right.
And I'm the guy that walks in the house and sees those kids that's not afraid to cry, and I don't care who it is. And it doesn't take people very long speaking with me to know I am a big teddy
Right.
bear. But I'm like any other bear. If you poke the bear long enough, I have that other side. I just choose not to be that person.
Well, that's really cool. That's been the take that I've had over the years, so thank you.
That's me.
We're going to take a short break.
Fantastic.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Tom Murphy, and this is Trinidad Now on Trinidad Times Television. We'll be right back. Good job.